Live from the Tom Mboya Labour College in Kisumu County. Good evening, my name is Joe Agayo. In the next few moments, we will be beginning the debate for the men and women who have put forth their names to be governor in County 042, Kisumu County. Now, the audience here has agreed to remain silent throughout this debate. No clapping, no jeering, no cheering, except in the next few moments as we welcome our candidates to the stage. And in the order of a ballot taking a few minutes ago, the first candidate on stage, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Amani National Congress candidate Peter Owino Omolo. Next on stage is Alternative Party of Kenya candidate David Otieno Wayera. Next is Jubilee Party candidate Christine Atieno Otieno. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator of Kisumu, Professor Nyong'o. Once again, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We shall all rise now for the national anthem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You may take your podiums, and the middle podium should be occupied by the incumbent governor, Jack Ranguma. We extended an invitation to him, and we still hope that at some point in this debate, he might show up. Now I'm going to run you through the rules as we begin this debate. These are rules that the candidates have been briefed about. The debate will last 90 minutes and shall be divided into 3 segments of 30 minutes each. The first segment will focus on the general topic of achieving prosperity in Kisumu. The second segment will be on living and working in Kisumu. And the third segment, that will be largely driven by the audience, will focus on the general subject of governing the county. Although the people who ask the questions are free to draw their questions from any of the other areas. Each candidate will have 90 seconds of an opening statement, again in the order of the ballot that you took a short while ago. 2 minutes to answer an original question from the moderator, and 2 minutes for a rebuttal whenever they are directly mentioned, and a minute to answer a follow-up question. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, we'll begin with the first segment, which is achieving prosperity in Kisumu. If you go over your time, ladies and gentlemen, you will hear a sound like this. You don't want to hear that. All right, let's begin. PC Omolo, in your manifesto, which I have had a chance to look at, you don't seem to pay special attention to the question of making it easy for people to do business. Ease of doing business is a common measure that they use in terms of attracting investment. Is that because you don't think it's an important thing, or is it because the current government has done such a splendid job that there's nothing to improve?
Thank you, Joe. I think I did cover that appropriately under good governance, because for me, if we don't exercise good governance, then whatever we're going to do is in vain. But before that, I would like to thank the people of Kisumu for turning up for this debate, and also feel privileged that it has been held in this wonderful institution named after Tomboya, who was a great debater in this country, and a descendant from Nyanza province. Thank you.
David, you could begin with your opening statement.
Yes, as has been mentioned, my name is David Otieno Wayera. I have lived in this town. I was brought up in this town, and therefore I understand where this town comes from in terms of the history. And I also do appreciate what needs to happen to ensure that this town, and by extension, Kisumu County, progresses in terms of development and in terms of the social welfare of our people. As has been mentioned, I'm standing on Alternative Leadership Party of Kenya ticket, a party that supports the NASA coalition, and of course does support the presidential bid of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. The reason why this is important to me is that devolution itself was one of the things that Raila Amolo Odinga fought for in terms of getting us a new constitution. And I think it was one of the most important items in that constitution. And devolution itself was meant to bring development to the people of Kisumu County at the very grassroots level. So this is very important to me, that people of Kisumu County must therefore benefit from devolution. One thing that I must hasten to mention, Joe, is the fact that despite devolution having come to us, there are still very high levels of unemployment, or underemployment for that matter.
We'll come back to that. Yeah. Christine, your opening statement, please.
Kisumu County is a very critical county in the Republic of Kenya. And it's key that we assess our worth in the eyes of other Kenyans. And how can we, people of Kisumu County, venture into business which is meaningful by changing our attitude and making sure that we focus towards development agenda. We can do that by using our own mentality and changing it towards inclusivity and making sure that the people of Kisumu County welcome and embrace business and make it a fact of their life, and the youth to focus on how can they create their business, and the universities to include all that together in the incubation process to know that it is possible and we can do it.
Thank you, Professor Nyong'o.
Thank you very much, George. I'd like to welcome the audience to this wonderful debate this afternoon, or this evening for that matter. In my manifesto, I begin by saying that when we did the economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation in our government, in which I was Minister for Planning and National Development, I made a very important statement. I observed that Kenya is a nation of great potential, but a disappointing underachiever. I think I can say the same of Kisumu County. A county of great potential, but a disappointing underachiever. Why do I say so? Because we have a lot of potential in our people. The farmers, the fishermen, the people, the youth, the women. But the county government must give these people an enabling environment for realizing their potential. When you talk about businessmen and business persons, we always think people with big capital. But the farmer down there is a business person because he or she invests in the farm. The fisherman is also a business person. So are the small traders in town. and those who spend their time cycling border borders to take people to work. The responsibility of the county government is to create an environment and incentives for these people to realize their potential, to be much more productive in what they do. I think our problem is that we have too much idle potential in Kisumu, not just in terms of land in agriculture, but the type of people who are ready to make their labor productive.
Thank you. Let me now return to my earlier question to you, PC Omolo. And I was talking about your manifesto, in which you speak about many things. But this whole issue of making Kisumu a place where people can come to invest and making it easy for those investors doesn't come out clearly.
Maybe to explain it further, as I told you and I still insist, the reason why people cannot come to invest in Kisumu, so long as you've got a problem of having a government that is known for not performing, a government where tenders are being given on the basis of technical know-how rather than technical know-how, then you don't find the investors coming to Kisumu. So I think what we have in Kisumu, the challenge we have, is to establish a functioning government that takes care of the Kisumu welfare, the Kisumu people welfare, a government that people feel belongs to them because they have elected it, a government that people feel that they are entitled to get services, a government that gives people red carpet treatment rather than red card treatment when providing services. I think the current government in Kisumu lack all that.
So what will you do?
What I do is to ensure that, first of all, we give priority to enabling legislation to ensure that when it comes to employment, it comes to giving tenders, it comes to doing any business, we do it overboard. And that is why I was talking about good governance.
Thank you. Mr. Wayera, you have indicated in your 5-point promise, which I saw on your Facebook page, that you will create employment by, quote, attracting investment. And then you give example of fish, cotton, dairy, rice, sugar, etc. In hard numbers, how much employment do you want to create and how?
In terms of just a ballpark figure, I would be looking to create about 10,000 jobs every year. I'm talking about direct employment. But in terms of indirect employment, we could be looking at something in the region of 100 to 150,000. And this 150,000 or so, this 100 to 150,000 will be created through that chain, that chain of production, selling, distribution of the goods and services that will be precipitating in terms of what we'll be doing for the county of Kisumu. In terms of how exactly we're going to create that investment, I think that's also an important part of that component of my manifesto. We're going to approach it from a PPP point of view. Someone could challenge us that we have these ambitious plans. How are we going to fund it from the very meager budgetary allocation from the national government and the little that they collect? We're going to use PPP. And we would like to revive some of the old industries in Kisumu that have since collapsed. And we're also going to create new industries that we believe that Kisumu County is ripe for, and that will be able to do well in Kisumu County. For instance, sugar. Sugar is largely dead. In fact, sugar is one of the main causes of poverty in the sugar belt area. Rice is underperforming. Cotton. We must plant cotton in Kisumu County. We must. That is a must. Because we have black cotton soil that can be able to do, that can make cotton grow well. And plus, we have land, we have people, and we have water. Fish is underperforming as well. The fish processing plant is based in Thika. Why not Kisumu? Sufficient opportunities for investment in the fish area. Hospitality and tourism is another.
The follow-up question I have for you is as follows. You seem to have worked out that figure right there on that stage. Have you worked it to the detail to know where the 10,000 is going to come from? Where did that 10,000 emerge from?
The 10,000, I was really looking at direct employment. There would be indirect employment, which sometimes is difficult to quantify. And as you know, manifestos are about aspirations. So I'm aspiring to create 10,000 jobs every year, and I expect perhaps another 100,000 or so indirectly. The manifesto would be looking at creating employment. And when I say employment, I'm looking at it from a generic point of view, not from the point of view of white-collar kind of jobs or even blue-collar type of jobs for that matter. I'm looking at creating opportunities for income. My manifesto and my vision is big on putting money in the people's pockets. I would like people of Kisumu County to have a lot more money than they currently do. And that, of course, as you know, would alleviate poverty. The poverty is just because people don't have money in their pockets. And that's core to what I'll be doing for the people of Kisumu County.
What's the poverty situation like now?
Poverty, let me put it this way. Employment, direct employment, direct employment is really the main source of income for a lot of people in this county. In terms of, shall I put it, employment as opposed to underemployment. A lot of people are underemployed, especially those in the informal sector. So that when you're looking at the figure of employment, it doesn't really give you a proper view of the situation in Kisumu County, because there are many, many people who are underemployed. The people in the border sector, the people in the Juakali sector. We have a lot of people working in, say, M-Pesa shops and so on and so forth. So there is quite some employment, but it is underemployment. And these are some of the things that we will be seeking to address.
Christine, how would you describe the business environment in Kisumu right now, and what do you want to do about it?
First of all, in Kisumu County, we do know that each and every election cycle, we are very apprehensive because of the kind of violence that is meted out during election. And to improve that aspect of our lives, it's important that we change how we look at issues, how we look at elections. As the people of Kisumu County, it's important that we realize that what is our education net worth and what is our economic net worth. We realize our education net worth is quite big, but our economic net worth is low. Why? Because each and every 5 years, vicious circle of business people running away, and even potential was not able to come and settle in Kisumu. So first and foremost, my agenda is to tell our people that it is bad for business to keep causing violence all the time, pulling out water pipes, burning roads, vandalizing businesses. It's important for us to...
Why do you have to wait to be governor to tell
them?
No.
I don't have to wait to be governor. I talk about it now. But for business purposes, especially when I'm on the seat, I know for a fact that that's an aspect that I will really have to work on, because we must change our attitude. Once we change our attitude towards good business attitude, then our people will realize that it is very hard to set up business, and therefore it's not good for us to use politics to chase away investors. And once we do that, then the ground will be stable, and we will be able to have investors coming in without asking the central government to guarantee their safety, to guarantee their businesses. So that's an aspect that we really have to look at as Kisumu County people. Then we are able now to have stability, and more businesses will set in, and we can be able to create more employment for that sake.
Right now you are a member of the Jubilee Party, which is a party that controls the national government, and looking at your profile document, which I've been reading, you say that you intend to lobby the national government to scale up the number of police patrols and police posts in the county for improved security. My question to you is, does it mean right now you don't have the ear of the national government, the government that controls the party on whose ticket you're running? Why are you not lobbying them now to improve the security in Kisumu?
That is already going on. As we speak, we do realize, and it's a fact, that Kisumu County has been branded wrongly. And one of the agendas that we've taken up is to make sure that we change our brand. And how do we change our brand? We change our brand by making our people feel safe. How do our people feel safe? When we have enough police and our people's change of attitude, and knowing that it is okay to report if something is wrong. It is okay to say no for intimidation. So that is a fact that we are doing with the central government, that even in the situation right now, if there's any intimidation concerning politics, concerning the way you believe, we take it up and say, this is the number you need to call in case somebody is intimidating you because of your position, because of your sex, because of your belief. That is going on as we speak with the central government to make sure that our people are safe, especially during this time of political upheavals.
My question, upon election, this is what you say, you will lobby the national government. That's what perhaps you could clarify.
We do realize that the amount that is available for the county government may not be enough. It's not enough for us to do the kind of development that we need. So once I'm elected as the governor of Kisumu County, since I will be in the ruling together with the government of the day, I am able to lobby for more input for the county. I'm able to lobby through the central government, because we know various businesses do need the guarantee of the central government to set up shop in various areas, so that we can be able to discuss at a general table and be able to tell the government it's okay to guarantee these businesses to be in Kisumu, because we have changed attitude, and that way we can be able to lobby more businesses to come to Kisumu and in turn get enough employment for our people, at least for a start.
Nyong'o, let's come to you. You've been waiting patiently on the wings. Now, your competitors, many of them, including the incumbent governor, have dismissed your 36-page manifesto as full of wonderful theories. What practical things will you do to create employment in Kisumu County?
That means the governor has not read the manifesto. Because if he read it, you'll understand that in the introduction, we say our agenda aims at putting the youth and women at the center of inclusive development with clear plans to achieve the following. 1, revitalize agriculture for food security and agribusiness. That's an action, not a theory. 2, ensure a healthy population living in a clean environment. That is not something theoretical, very practical. 3, build modern physical infrastructure like roads, which Ranguma is doing very poorly, with culverts that break down within 1 month. I saw that he has issued more tenders for 73 more, culverts, each costing just about 3 million shillings. And they are culverts made of mabati. So I don't understand how that costs 3 million shillings. 4, promote skills development and innovation. 5, conserve the environment while opening the Kisumu lakefront for business. And by the way, that was in the Kisumu urban project, which was supposed to be implemented from 2012-2016 with a grant from the French government, and other projects were there. Nothing was done. So that is not theoretical. That's a failure on his part. 6, provide decent housing in inclusive towns, semi-urban centers, and villages. Mind you, one of the functions of county government is to look after markets. Now you understand that our markets are no longer simple markets. They are peri-urban areas. The environment is terrible. They don't have water. They don't have toilets. And they don't have solid waste management put in place. Solid waste management was another project.
We'll come back to the issue of solid waste management, but what is that makes you different from the lady and 2 gentlemen? They are all speaking about improving lives for the people of Kisumu and increasing employment, including the 10,000 figure from David over there.
One of the things that makes me different from them, if you read the manifesto fully, is that it's very systematic. First, in the area of creating employment, we have very concrete proposals. For example, I propose that when we build roads, we should establish in Kisumu County road maintenance teams of young men and women who will maintain these roads, rather than waiting until they break down and then bring a contractor 3 years later to be paid a huge sum of money to do the job that they did 3 years earlier. And if these roads were maintained by the Kisumu road maintenance teams, who are paid money and therefore they perform jobs, they have incomes for their families, that is a concrete proposal for job creation with development. And further, also propose, when it comes to infrastructure, it's not just a question of infrastructure in towns and roads and so on, it's infrastructure in the villages. And so long as the county...
The cost of all of this, Professor Nyong'o, the Kisumu County, even in the current estimate, I think got 6.9, the current division of revenue allocation for this current year, 6.9 billion, the collection perhaps 1 billion, maybe it might increase,
well,
but that's still very little money.
No,
to
it's
do
not
all
very
this.
little money, Joe, because with
To
that
build
money,
a rail, to do all the
with
physical
that money,
infrastructures.
if you go to the county of Kakamega, you'll find that Oparanya has built roads, created sewage, proper sewage, water. He's putting up a 6 billion hospital in Kakamega. He has made sure that there are modern kiosks in Kakamega. When women go to deliver in hospitals, they are given 2,000 shillings. If you go to Siaya, Governor Rasanga is paying Nyamrerwa women 3,000 shillings a month, giving them NHIF cards, and also subsidizing their tractor farming when tractors are used for plowing for them. So it depends where you cut wastages and when you maximize productivity. In our county, the problem is there's too much wastage. I just asked Governor Runguma the other day, why is it that the optimum size of the working force in Kisumu is 2,750? You have already employed 4,000 and you are continuing to employ. Where is the money coming from? If he was a wise governor, he was control on unnecessary employment and use that money for other productive activities.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the next question in this segment, which is to do with agriculture, because we know that people hardly prosper when they're hungry. In fact, according to the county government, Kisumu had a deficit of over 800,000 bags of maize, for instance, this year. PC Omolo, in your manifesto, you promise to do something you call ensuring agriculture becomes an attractive, viable economic enterprise. What is that?
Before I go there, Joe, I just want to make a comment on what my sister Atinotino said about the attitude of people in Kisumu changing. I think let us be very, very honest to ourselves, and I appreciate that she belongs to a different party, and I appreciate that our people have welcomed multipartyism. I think let us disabuse ourselves of this notion that Luos have got a mentality for violence. Because if violence in Kisumu is what is causing lack of investment, then there will be no investment in Central Province. Our sisters and brothers in Central Province can't even afford to sleep in their villages the way we do. So Kisumu is a very peaceful county compared to many counties. I had the privilege of working across this country. I can tell you this place is very, very peaceful, and I don't think it's violence that is causing lack of investment in this country. I mean, this county. There are other issues that we must confront head on. But having said that, I want to say that what I meant is this. If you look at this country today and compare it to other developing countries, we have got a very huge potentiality in agriculture. But we must stop thinking about agriculture the way our parents and maybe even ourselves went to the farm. We must modernize our farming techniques, farming methods by investing in research and making people look at agriculture as attractive investment. And this is now happening in other parts of the world, including Kenya. So I think before we inject more resources in agriculture, our people here will look at agriculture as something which is only good for people who didn't go to school. But right now, agriculture elsewhere, for example, you see, like in even Wajir right now, you see now people are having greenhouses. So I think we have not done enough to invest in agriculture in terms of new skills, new seeds, and even training the extension officers to come and assist the farmers. Because like a young man in the village many years ago, I used to see extension officers coming to the village. These days they're not there. And I know and I'm aware that extension services is part of the responsibility of county government. So if we invest in extension officers being employed to help the farmer will now come up with new techniques and make agriculture to be attractive, rather than seeing it as some kind of job which is left for people who never went to school.
Christine, you want to respond to the allegation that you are making false statements about this place?
Thank you very much. It is a fact, and facts do not change just because you have a different opinion. And if my brother, Mr. PC Omolo, lives within Kisumu County, he knows the kind of political violence that we experience. And it is a fact that this political violence has scared away many investors. In time like this, many investors who are even available here are packing their bags and they are leaving. To some extent, they are afraid, they're not bringing in enough investment. So it's a fact. And unless we don't want to change, we must confront our weaknesses so that we can be able to improve. If we don't confront our weaknesses, then we cannot improve on them. So that's a fact that is interfering with our livelihood, is interfering with our children, is interfering with how we look at life generally. So it really has to stop so that we can be able to rebrand Kisumu into the new venture which is forward-looking and never looking back.
I didn't deny that, but compare that political violence with Mungiki violence, which is more violent. You ask her. Whether Mungiki is in Nyanza or elsewhere. So let us compare things in a logical manner. But yet, because violence is all over the world, even America is violence. But violence in Kisumu is not unique. The Mungiki violence in federal province is worse than what you have in Kisumu. So if there's a reason why we don't have investment, let's look for other reasons other than just violence. It's true that we have more demonstrations, yes, than many other parts of the country. But most of these demos are not violent at all.
May I respond?
Oh, okay.
What I said in the beginning is we must look at our education worth and our economic worth. What is the economic value of Central Province? What is the economic value of Kisumu? We therefore can, if we can talk about Mungiki, is it interfering with the business there to the extent that we don't have investors going in? So we must look at the general issue. How does this political upheavals and violence interfere with our lives? When we uproot water pipes, it's not the politicians who drink this water, it's our children. And when these water pipes are uprooted, the child in the slum, where some of us grew up, will be more sick. And that is why the infant mortality rate for Kisumu is higher than the national figure. So we must stop that violence because it interferes with the very people whose lives we want to improve.
Okay, we will come back to security later on. I gave you because you were mentioned very specifically, so that was the right for
Now I wanted to say something about violence and investment. I think I agree with Owino Molo. It is not the violence that is so-called scaring away investors. And we must not think of investors as just people coming from outside. We are the investors. The people farming the sugar belt are the investors. The people farming rice are the investors. The people fishing in the lake are the investors. The responsibility of the government is really to create an enabling environment for these investors to make money and to be more productive. The youth that are said to be violent, if you create jobs for those youths, they will have no time to be violent. It is said in Christian religion that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. If you are idle, you are tempted to do other things. If you are frustrated, you are tempted to do other things. What we intend to do really is to create an enabling environment to provide productive activities for our youth so that they don't use that spare time for violence, or they don't let their mind be used by the devil as a workshop for violence. So I don't think that is their mistake.
How do you explain the fact, Professor Nyong'o, that there are many places in this country where there is high unemployment, but the violence is not as vicious or as common as it is
I don't think
during elections?
It's very difficult to make that correlation, by the way. You really have to do a lot of research to correlate places where there is high poverty or employment and low violence. It's very difficult to make it because I can take random samples of counties in this country and find incidents of violence which are more vicious, what Molo is saying, than Kisumu. And I don't think we can make a dogmatic statement that it's violence that scares away investors. No. If we have a working government with good governance, and if we have good land laws and land regulation, land actually is the issue here. We don't have investors. You and I fear investing in Kisumu City because the land regime is awful. If you try to invest here, 3 people will turn up with title deeds. So you can't invest to create employment for the youth because we have not automated our land registry and made the title deed a sacrosanct document. So we don't have investors even among ourselves because of the poor land regime in our own city. And if we did regulate that and make it automated and a proper land register, a lot of us would invest. Not just from outside, but from here. Many people want to put low-cost housing in Kisumu, but they can't.
I want to return to security in the next segment, but as we conclude this segment, there is the question of agriculture that we would like to tackle because food security is a real concern in this county. And David, you make no mention of food security anywhere in all the things I've read about you. Do you think people here are not hungry enough, or it's not important?
People are hungry. Now, Joe, my manifesto is big on investment and employment. And so I would like to look at the issue of agriculture from an investment point of view. My government will invest, will ensure that we attract investment and promote investment in the area of agriculture, agribusiness, and agri-processing. And we would be looking at employment creation along that chain. Very important to mention, Joe, is the fact that Kisumu as a county imports its food. And not only its food, Kisumu imports a lot of its items. So what we'll be looking to do as a county government is to first ensure that we can feed ourselves to as much extent as possible. Because there are certain food items that perhaps cannot do well within this environment in Kisumu County. But as far as possible, we must be able to produce sufficient food for ourselves. And in addition to that, we must be able to export our food to other counties. That is only when we'll be able to create wealth within Kisumu County. Poverty, as I said, is a big issue here. So I'll be looking at agriculture from the point of view of employment creation, from the point of view of wealth creation. And when I say employment, as I said earlier, I'm looking at it from a generic sense, from the point of view that it's not just employment in terms of wearing a shirt and tie like I used to when I was in the bank, but it's more of just creating income opportunities for our people. And we would like that income opportunity to be created at that very basic level. That old woman in that rural home should be able to plant cotton and be able to harvest it and receive that very little income that she never used to receive in the past. That is big in my agenda.
And that's your solution to the food shortage in this country?
Yeah, so we'll be looking at food from the point of view of creating opportunities for income. And like I mentioned, as far as possible, we'll try to be food sufficient, but many times that might not be realistic. Because, for instance, I might not necessarily encourage the people of Kisumu County to grow a lot of maize. It might not be the most viable way to use our resources in terms of land, water, and labor. Perhaps what might work better would be for us to do horticulture, for instance. Because we have water, we have land, and we have labor. And horticulture, as you know, it will improve incomes a little better, perhaps, than planting maize. So for me, I'm big on income. I'm big on money in my people's pockets.
Christine, you say that you make reference to agriculture from the irrigation side and so on, but you're also committing to engage the youth in economic activities such as large-scale farming. Please explain with very specific details how you as a governor would engage youth in large-scale farming.
There's no way we can be able to sustain ourselves and to create enough food in our environment in Kisumu County without going into serious farming. And it's important that we get water, because we cannot be able to sustain key agricultural output without having the right amount of water. We can no longer depend on rain. And therefore, we use women at the women groups levels and start by engaging them, which we've already been doing from our Maendeleo ya Wanawake perspective, and telling them it is important for them to start farming at a very high level so that they can be able to produce enough food for themselves, the family, and to be able to sell to their neighbors or in the market, and even look towards using the airport that we have, because I'd said we need to collaborate with the central government so that we can be able to have cold rooms in that airport, so that we can be able to have the women groups and the youth able to do serious farming, which can be able to be exported to the outside world once we have been able to certify the local market. And we can only achieve this by going through water dam, the dam system, which the central government is already in the process of doing, because we don't have enough money within the county government, and we can be able to partner with the central government and have the dams done. Therefore, we can be able to say we can do sustainable farming, which can be able to help the youth and the women to create their market outside. And therefore, with the central government in place and through the export processing zone, which this area is not using effectively, we need to partner with them and tell our people it is okay, it is viable, it can be done. So once we have that water system going on, we have enough food, and once we have enough food, we can therefore also have people who are healthy because they have enough food. So that agriculture aspect we are taking very seriously, and partnering with Kenya Seed so that our farmers get the right seed to plant in particular area, and informing their people in this locality, this is what you do, so that you can be able to use it that way.
Professor Nyong'o, is the food crisis in Kisumu because of lack of investment in agriculture?
I think farmers are investing, but they're not getting good returns for their investment. People are working very hard, but they're not getting good returns for the investment. Secondly, access to market is a problem. Let me give you an example. When a woman takes her potatoes to a market to sell, she has to pay a fee. And that fee sometimes is prohibitive, because if you compare the amount of money somebody in Sondu or in Chemelil pays for a license to run a shop or to put the commodities in the market in a day, as compared to the owner of Nakumat or other big shops, proportionately, you'll find that our people pay much more proportionately than these others, which is unfair. And it creates a disincentive for taking your commodities to the market. When we were in the coalition government, we started these fresh produce markets, fresh produce facilities in our markets. They have not worked very well. Why? Because even when you are taking your produce to the fresh produce market, you still have to pay some fees. And that is not good. I'll give you an example. If you go to Chemelil or to Sondu, which I've got done, you'll find to get a license to run a shop in Sondu, the Kisumu side, you'll have to pay 5,000 shillings a month. You're only receipted 3,500 shillings. On the Kericho side, the other side of the road, people pay 2,500 shillings and they're fully receipted. You go to Chemelil roundabout, you find the same experience. This creates a disincentive for people to use the market, have access to it for their commodities. What do we do? First, encourage people to invest in agriculture by removing these disincentives. Two, make access to market in terms of building rural infrastructure much better. The county government of Kisumu has tried to build roads rather poorly, very costly, and that is not very good for the development of our county. And finally, I think I agree with my colleagues who say that. Can I finish?
All right, we will finish in the next round. And we have to move to living and working in Kisumu. And one of the most pernicious issues in this city is that of solid waste management. The eyesore that is Kachok dumping site is there for all to see. 3 acres of garbage next to a football stadium, and so on and so forth. And it's been the subject of many discussions. And Mr. Omolo, your manifesto merely talks about public health and environment awareness as a priority. Then you speak about proper management of solid waste. Do you have a plan, and what is it, and why is it not in your manifesto?
Yes, I do. But just to finalize this thing on agriculture, I just want to say that the problem in Kisumu is that our farmers grow what they don't eat and eat what they don't grow. So that must change. Coming to solid waste, of course, manifesto, you can't make it a thesis. You have to really put spotlight on what you want to do. In fact, solid waste is business. And if I become governor, and when I become governor of Kisumu, I intend to have lorries going across the county collecting garbage for management. I do remember in my small market in Awasi, as a young man, that market was very clean, because the county council employed people who used to sweep that market every day. But I think we now have a different lifestyle. Even in the village, we now have things which are being bound with paper. So I mean paper and also cellophane paper. And this is, unless we can control them and manage them well, like farmers will tell you sometimes during drought, they eat this jwala, and people have lost their livestock. So really, if you can manage our waste, we tell our people where to put them, and every day or once a week, if the market is not very busy, people come, the county officials come and get this waste to a particular area for management, or if it is a place like a Hero, and these big markets, you can actually have it being cleaned every day and those things being taken somewhere for management. That is what I intend to do. And lastly, I'll love to get what Jack Rangumba's government has failed to do, to get, I say, a factory which will be managing that waste on a daily basis to provide electricity. Thank you.
David, as someone running for governor, you must have given this garbage issue some thought.
Absolutely.
What is the scale of this problem in Kisumu, and how do you want to deal with it?
Joe, it is a serious problem. And as you know, this has an impact on public health. And in my manifesto, my more detailed manifesto, I put emphasis on preventive health, which is, of course, a lot cheaper than curative health. Joe, there are two issues regarding this solid waste management issue. First is sewage, and two is garbage. But I want to start with garbage. Today in Kisumu County, garbage collection is largely non-existent, and if it exists, it is done informally, and it's, everybody does whatever they can do. So one of the first things that I'll do is to ensure that we have a proper garbage collection system, because a garbage collection system is what will also facilitate a garbage recycling process, because you can't just collect all garbage and put them all together and expect to have a proper recycling system. So firstly, garbage collection system. I grew up in this town, as I mentioned earlier, and I remember fondly the days when we had the garbage bins distributed by the municipal council, and you could see every so often a truck from the municipal council coming to collect garbage. We would like to see our city back to those days. The other thing that I must mention also is the fact that we must relocate that garbage site, wherever it is now. It is a shame. So within 90 days of me taking over government, should you elect me, I will make sure that the dump site is relocated, first of all. Before
Garbage is there in Kisumu. That's I really want to.
Yeah, I know that's a big issue. One of the things that we'll definitely be looking at to make that recycling plant a lot more viable is to broaden the area of the catchment area, if I could use that word. We will broaden it to include perhaps the whole county, and should there need be.
Christine.
Garbage is employment. Garbage is big business. Garbage can employ our people. We'll start with the women groups. For each and every sub-county, we have the groups of women who are able to handle garbage. We give them that opportunity so that we can put money in their pockets. Garbage can employ the youth so that we don't have to put that money all in one company. We decentralize it and make sure that the youth groups in each and every ward have a take and can be able to also internalize the responsibility of keeping their areas clean. So that way, only through that garbage, we can create some employment for the youth groups, the women groups, and spread the money. One of the reasons why we've not been able to have that aspect handled well is just corruption, because the people who are charged with the responsibility are not willing to go out and empower the people in the lower cadre of the community to be able to help in getting this. And even for the business people who want to do it, you're supposed to have some cut before you are able to do it. Even the street children can have direct employment from garbage collection. We can put meaning in their life. So that way, we can be able to get a substantial amount of garbage collected through direct employment to our people before we can engage more serious companies to do the rest of the work and create power from that garbage, create fertilizer from that garbage, so it can give us a lot of employment.
What will you do with that dumping site there?
We definitely have to relocate it, because we cannot. Of course, it came when the town was very, very small, but the moment the town has spread, even if it was there, there is a system, even in Japan, even in Germany, which can even clear that garbage at that place, clear it and use it to make fertilizer, create electricity. But that also on the side, you can still relocate it to another particular area, get the right site, pay the right amount, not exaggerating it, and have employment through our people. So it is possible, it is doable, it can be done.
Relocation is something that has been talked about a lot, Professor Nyong'o, and you have talked a little bit about waste management, but we know that as part of the Kisumu urban project, there was a whole issue of relocating this garbage that has been talked about. How do you plan to deal with what seems to be a standoff between the county government and the French development agency that is part of this? Because the county government seems to be saying the place is supposed to be relocated is too far and that sort of thing. What is that concrete plan if we were to relocate it?
It's not really a standoff. It's just a deliberate move by the Kisumu county government not to do what was supposed to be done under the Kisumu urban project. Kisumu urban project had about 7 projects under it. One of these was solid waste management in Kisumu city. That Mount Ranguma was supposed to be relocated somewhere, and the Kisumu county government was supposed to to locate that place. They did buy a piece of land, 27 kilometers from the city in Moroni, to relocate it there, but they didn't. The excuse is given that people objected. That's just an excuse. A study was done that gave 4 other sites from which the county government could choose. The county government preferred that one for reasons, as Atieno says, of rent-seeking and corruption. That was it. But otherwise, there are 3 other sites, and I have the study, to where this solid waste can be taken. Having said that, the issue of solid waste is not just a Kisumu city issue. And by the way, you cannot implement those KUP projects unless and until you establish a city management board with a city manager, because that is what the Urban Areas and City Act demands of the county government, and they have not done it for the last 5 years. The issue of solid waste is county-wide. You only need to go to Otonglo, or Lela, or Katito, and any so-called market. You will see the amount of solid waste in these places. They are an environmental disaster. We need to have solid waste management in the whole county. Secondly, you're not going to have successful solid waste management in the county unless you have village councils, which is the basis of devolution in county. The village councils will help us to do with things like solid waste management, because they will organize the collection of that waste and the offloading of that waste to a truck that takes it somewhere where it is transformed, as Atieno says, into chemicals, into fertilizers, and other things. The technology is there.
So do you have a similar plan?
Not similar. I'm just saying, I'm just saying what she said is correct. You can get that solid waste and use it for industrial purposes. A German firm came here.
I was trying to get the difference. That is what I was...
The difference is that I have said that the solid waste is county-wide. It cannot be done without village councils, because there is some form of governance at that local level. This government has refused to establish village council, which is constitutionally demanded. It also demanded in the County Government Act. So unless you have good governance and governmental structures which can help do this, the county government is not going to have an enabling environment to doing these things. That's the point I'm making. And further, another thing we must be aware of, Joe, is that so long as we are going to have pit latrines in this county, we are sitting on an environmental disaster. Because, you know, in that pit latrine, there's both solid waste and liquid waste. The liquid waste can take some stuff from the solid waste, take it to a borehole, and we need borehole for fresh water and irrigation. And then you have a health disaster. My idea is, in the long run, and we must begin planning for it now, to do away with the pit latrines in our county, because they are an environmental disaster waiting to happen. And that is part of dealing with the solid waste down there. We must think of that one as well.
All right. Thank you very much. We need to move to the issue of water in Kisumu. Next to the largest freshwater lake in this part of the world, perennial water shortages. PC Omolo, your pledge, as I understand it, is to give priority to ensuring environmental protection of and pollution control on the rivers and waters on Lake Victoria, and easy access to clean water for domestic purposes. Explain how this will solve the water problem in Kisumu.
I want to begin with the clean water for drinking. I think if you look at the world today, Kisumu is not a water-stressed county, even in this country. We can't say that we are water-stressed with the largest lake in this part of the world, having the Nyanza Gap here, or we call it Kavirondo Gap, and so many rivers emptying themselves into Lake Victoria, passing through Kisumu. But I think because of lack of investment in water for our people, we continue to drink dirty water, especially during dry seasons. And I think before we get piped water everywhere, the kind of money we have in this county, we should be able to supply our people with water bowser during drought. Because anybody will tell you, I see my friend who was my yearmate, who was my schoolmate here, Dr. Nyong'o, most of our diseases actually go through the mouth. Either when you eat food or take water or drink water. And therefore we can prevent some of these diseases by having clean water. And clean water is not a miracle. We can do it, and before people have piped water, we shall ensure that we have enough water bowsers to provide clean water for our people to drink during drought. Secondly, I did read about the Nile Treaty. And the late Dr. Bonaya and the former Minister for Water, Martha Karua, both of whom are lawyers, told me there's really nothing in that treaty that prevents Kenya from using the waters going into Lake Victoria. So I think it has been the reluctance to invest in Nyanza that our people have continued to drink dirty water. Finally, I want to say that we also have a responsibility. Like the experts say, that this fish called ningu, I think all of us know that these days you cannot get ningu. The experts say that for ningu to breed, it goes about 100 kilometers from the lake. What is that?
I'm still trying to understand. I am still trying to understand, Mr. Omolo. I'm still trying to understand how you will ensure that the freshwater lake that is here gives fresh water to the people of Kisumu. Because the lake is here and they don't have water.
That's why I said that we shall invest in providing clean water to people from the lake and the rivers. There's nothing in law that prevents us from doing that. And I've also said that before we do that investment, because it's a heavy investment, there's nothing to stop us from providing clean water to our people using water bowsers during drought.
What are you going to invest in exactly?
Come again?
What are you investing in? Are you building something? What exactly are you investing in?
We can build water reservoirs on our rivers. We can also get water from Lake Victoria. There is nothing, because even at the moment, part of the water given to Kisumu municipality is from the lake directly. So there's nothing to prevent us from getting water from Lake Victoria to provide those far ends of Seme and those far ends of Moroni and Nyando constituencies. There's nothing in law. What we have done is we have talked to the government to invest in water, because I know water is a county government responsibility. But that does not prevent the central government, the national government, from also bringing coupling funds to ensure that that investment is in place.
David,
yes.
You only talk about infrastructure. What are you building and how is it solving the problem of Kisumu?
Yeah, Joe, water constitutes a critical part of that component of my manifesto, build infrastructure. Now, the way I look at water is that water is life. And the way I look at it is that there would be, of course, the most basic one, which is clean drinking water. Every metropolis, every town must have clean drinking water to its citizens. And that if you fail in that, then you fail fundamentally. So one of the basic things that we have to do as a county government is to provide clean drinking water. In terms of the infrastructure, the grand infrastructure project that I'll be looking at here, and this is based on plans that have been put in place in the past, is that we'll be putting up a huge project, and that's a plan, that will pump water from Lake Victoria up to Riat Hills, and then purified there, or shall I say, chlorinated and cleaned over there. Then the water will then flow down via gravity to the county, because the rest of the county is lowlands, so it should flow via gravity. But having said that, water will be important, will be a very important component for agriculture, particularly irrigation. I mean, there's some irrigation that's going on in this county, but it's not being done properly. I'll be looking at improving irrigation for rice. I know that that's currently being done by the national government. but we must work with national government in consultation and coordination. Secondly, or thirdly, is lake transport. Lake transport died many years ago. To my mind, lake transport will be critical in terms of reviving the trading channels for Kisumu County. And when I talk about trading channels, I'm talking about both inter-county channels as well as inter-country channels. We have access to Uganda and Tanzania via the lake. We do have access.
Christine, you also talk about putting up a modern water plant to supply water for domestic use. Is that what's missing in Kisumu? That's why we can't use the water of Lake Victoria to supply water to Kisumu?
It's a very key component of our development agenda. Without us investing heavily in the water aspect, we may not be able to achieve a lot of economic output. And it's because of that water that we also have a lot of diseases. And as I said before, our children under the age of 5, the health aspect is really overburdened by that because we have dirty water. So the component of water is very key, and that's an aspect where we really have to work with the central government and work with the international community, because we must vis-a-vis look at the issue of the water, removing it from the lake. The cost effect of it must be very fundamental, and it could be very heavy for the county government to enable us achieve like the 70% into the houses, because if we don't do that, the women will not be liberated to do other duties, because the cost of going to pick water from wherever source and the amount that they have to pay for it eats into their economic power. And that is why we need to partner with the central government, partner with other international communities, so that we can be able to bring down the cost of having this water into our houses, for clean water to be available, for our health to improve, and for us to even have surplus for us to use in the agricultural sector, which cannot work for now because of the expenses. That's why the central government is going to put in the dams, which we can use for the agricultural aspect, but we can also concentrate on making sure that we have clean water to release the woman from the burden and make sure that we can be able to develop economically. So that aspect of water is a very serious key component of our development agenda. And if we don't focus on it as the agenda number 1, then we are going to fail. The health aspect will go badly, and the time factor for the woman to go to do other duties will fail, and the general public and public health aspect is compromised without water. So that's an aspect that we really have to work together with others to make it succeed.
Thank you. Professor Nyong'o, you speak a lot about irrigation and opening the lakefront for business and so on and so forth. But there's a basic problem in this, especially in Kisumu city, of water, just water for people to use, and there is a lake here. What is that plan?
There's no contradiction between the two, really. You can do irrigation and improve the lakefront and still also deal with giving people fresh water to drink. What we don't understand, what we don't realize actually, is that people in Kisumu, the figures that I have, 54% of our residents are already using improved sources of water. That looks at a high percentage, but it is true. You know why? Because for quite some time we were favored to have a lot of NGOs in the water sector. Kwaho, Plan International, Water for Health Organization, and these organizations developed a lot of shallow wells for improved water use. And then the CDF also came along to do some water projects. But before that, there were also some piped water done by the national government, but which are now outdated because they were based on a very small population. Now what we need to do is to improve on what we have, but also improve in providing clean water for drinking through boreholing. It's much cheaper. It can cover a whole village, one borehole, if properly done. But another thing that we must talk about is our neighbors, Vihiga here. There's already a big project in Vihiga, financed by the Belgian government, to provide piped water in Vihiga, a capacity that can percolate into our county. What I intend to do is to partner with Vihiga, not to reinvent the wheel, but try and tap into that water supply from Vihiga to supply nearby townships like Maseno, Lela, and so on. But finally, I agree with Molo. There's no God-given law that says that we can't use water from Lake Victoria to provide drinking water. None at all. And that we can do. I think the much more important thing is irrigation. It's very easy to irrigate the sugar belts and the rice belts because there's plenty of water there, given the dam. But the rest of the county, we need to think much more imaginatively on doing irrigation. But it is needed for improving agricultural production.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Nyong'o. Ladies and gentlemen, we are down to the last segment of this debate. This is the segment where later on in the next few minutes we'll be inviting part of the audience to pose questions to the four candidates that we have on stage today. But before then, I will ask one question of each one of you. The current administration was the first of its kind following the 2010 enactment of the 2010 Constitution. And I start with you, Mr. Omolo. What new thinking will you bring in, if you're elected as governor, to entrench the concept of devolution in Kenya?
Thank you, Joe. I have given myself 100 days from the day I'll be elected into that office. Number one, I will do 4 bills within 100 days. The first bill will be the County Public Service Board bill. If we don't have an act of the County Assembly telling our governor how to employ people, then, as I said earlier, employment in Kisumu will be based purely on technical know-how, no technical know-how. We must fund that board to be like the Public Service Commission so that it can be independent and it can have funds to run its affairs. Number two, I will move in the Assembly to give them a bill on public projects management bill, because we lose a lot of money through the lack of a proper legal guideline how we implement projects. Number one, by merely putting a board, which is in law, telling us that this road from point A to point B is given to Mr. X as the contractor. It is 30 kilometers. It is to have 6-inch thick maram, and it is going to cost so much money, and it must be completed within such a time. That will curb corruption. Right now, we see roads being built. You don't know from which point to which point. You don't know the contractor. You don't know how much it is going to cost. You don't know the thickness of the maram. So there's a lot of pilferage in these projects. Number three, I think public participation is very crucial, and that bill must be passed within, I know there's one, we shall amend it. Number two, I will have a press center in my office. Corruption is a big business in this country, not just in Kisumu. And that's why sometimes when people point on Ranguma alone, it is wrong. I think it is high time the governor had a press center in his office, because by exposing your operations to the press, by people participating in management and administration, you reduce pilferage.
What do you mean a press center?
So that people are aware, whatever you do, you can call the press can also, because you see, press is also supposed to bring accountability, so that people know that what we are doing is reportable to the press. We are okay. Number three, can I continue?
Okay, your time was up. That is the follow-up question. Okay, David, your new thinking on devolution.
Now, devolution itself as a concept was introduced in Kenya in order to devolve socio-economic development in this country. And it was based on the fact that the central government tended to not be sensitive to the needs of the very local people, and that then development was also not equitably distributed. So essentially, one of the things that I will have to do, to ensure that devolution works, is to ensure that the county government brings development right to the grassroots level. And that explains why, in terms of my manifesto, I'm looking at agriculture, agribusiness, and agri-processing as key in terms of empowering our people at that very local level. Now, when I talk about empowering, I must just explain by saying that Empowering means creating income opportunities at that very local level. It might not necessarily be employment in the formal sense. Secondly, and very importantly, is to ensure that other sectors such as health are devolved to the extent that at that very village level, people have very easy access to health. And that health has got to be comprehensive enough for what it's supposed to achieve. Because, of course, we don't expect that heart surgery will be performed in a village clinic. Another important aspect of devolution, which I will have to ensure happens, is governance. Governance, not only from the point of view of corruption and so on, but governance from the point of view of ensuring that we have structures that will ensure a bottom-up approach in terms of our agenda, and that will also ensure equitable distribution of resources. Now, when I talk of equitable distribution of resources, what I mean is that...
Christine, what will be your contribution to devolution if you become governor?
Devolution is self-governance. We need to know that what is our responsibility in what we have. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is expected. So what we have been given, we must make sure that we use it to the maximum and be able to produce out of it. So in self-governance, we must have that self-discipline to know that what is the development agenda that we are carrying through. Kisumu County was rated to only have 1% development. That to me is very bad, and we need to work more towards that and have the larger share of our development agenda to have a bigger percentage. We need to focus on our sports. This is a talented area. People in this area can do very good sports. We have young people who have a lot of energy. Part of the reasons we see a lot of violence is because we are not redirecting that energy to the right place. Focus on the sports, make them be viable people. We have people like Dow, people like Congestina, who done well. Keep them in focus. Have reinsurance policy for them. Tell them when you are doing well, you can invest this way, and therefore create more employment from them and other people. Health aspect. Our people are doing very badly, even in aspects of mental disability. People are sick because that hospital has not changed from pre-colonial times. My good friend and learned professor was there in the health sector during those times, but that facility has remained the way it is for 50 plus years. It's the oldest in the country. Improve on that and make sure that the public participate on what they want. In the Constitution, public participation is a key agenda. If they want a school, don't give them a road. If they want a hospital, don't give them something else. Make sure that you do what they want. Last but not least, the governor, together with the people of Kenya, once they've elected the governor, it is their responsibility to make sure that the governor is doing what he or she is supposed to do. And therefore, have that public participation once every 6 months, going around the county to know that the people are focused on what they want. And last but also not least, do not stop the people and the community from collaborating with other Kenyans. It is okay. We must think as Kenya, not as just Luos. Because if we think as Luos, we are limited. And if we think as Kenya, we widely open our space and we develop better.
All right, Professor Nyong'o, you speak in your manifesto of some 5-member village councils. What is that, and how will it strengthen devolution?
Hey, Joe, you know, if you're going to have devolution in Kisumu, we must have a devolved system of government up to the village level. Both the Constitution and the County Government Act says that the foundation of ugatuzi or devolution is a village council. The national government has the sub-chief and the sub-location. The county government has nothing at the grassroots, which means that devolution is not founded properly in this county. That must be done because it's required by the Constitution, it's required by law. It will provide the structure of participation, the structure of planning, the structure for accountability. Secondly, in the city of Kisumu, I insist, the city of Kisumu cannot be governed from the governor's office. The urban areas of the city say there must be a city management board and a city manager. And the functions of both the city management board and the city manager are very clear. That is why Kisumu is so dirty, because the governor cannot clean the city by himself. He doesn't have an institution to do it. Thirdly, you made a very important observation, Joe, that from the Division of Revenue Act, we get an average of 6.5 billion shillings a year. There's some money we get from the equalization fund and the conditional grant going to the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital. But there's another thing we must do, improve revenue collection locally. Governor Munya Umeru, when he started 4.5 years ago, was collecting about 600 million shillings. Today it's collecting 2.5 billion shillings a year, or is a month. Now here, we are still stagnating. We are collecting averagely less than the previous local councils. And even when we collect, we have ways by which we use some of that money in our pockets. I described to you how they do it through licensing. Now, we need to automate the system of revenue collection. We will more than quadruple our revenue collection. With that local revenue, we shall finance a lot of projects.
Okay, and that is a nice segue into the last round of questions before we open this to the audiences. And this is about financing the promises that you gentlemen and lady have made this evening. Mr. Omolo, with all the things that you promised in your 12-page manifesto, how much is it going to cost? Have you thought about the money and where is it coming from?
Yes, I thought about the money. First, I would like to say that Rome was not built in one day, but it was always being built. So the kind of money that we get from the government, like Professor said, we have seen that if you misuse your money, it doesn't matter how much money you're given, you will not achieve anything. So with the money that we get in Kisumu, I am confident that we are able to meet what we are saying here. It is achievable, it's doable. And what we shall do is to plug all the loopholes. Because as I said, if you are employing people in the technical know-how fashion, then you are not going to have money in your hand. If you are going to be giving contractors jobs, which is based on friendship, you are not going to have money. Because we know, I come from Kisumu and my village, I've seen projects being funded by the county government. Very, very expensive. So really that's why I was talking about good governance. We must make sure that the assembly does its work, that the county public accounts committee does its work, that we enforce and we trust the anti-corruption agencies to ensure that we don't have pilferage anyhow. And I think we cannot ask for money from other people if what we have they can't see. With due respect to most of our governors, including this one, when you go abroad looking for money or looking for investment, those people are not fools. They also look at your record. So if you cannot handle the list that you are given, you have got no right, and nobody will listen to you, to ask for even less. So I think that we are misusing the money we have in Kisumu, and we have got a lot of people who are ready and willing to invest in Kisumu. And if you open Kisumu for business, that money will be available. Thank you.
I was hoping to hear some figures, Mr. Omolo. It's money, is it not?
So some figures, because largely what I said is what is doable elsewhere. And I've seen counties, because Joe, I've gone to many counties in this country since 2013. And I've seen counties with less money doing more than Kisumu. So with 6 billion we have in Kisumu, and you can raise another 2 billion, 8 billion, we can do a lot. What I'm proposing here is peanut.
David, how much is your program going to cost? Where is the money from?
I'll tell you where the money will be got from. First, let me put it this way. In terms of the funding of these projects, there are many projects that are undertaken by county government which are subject to a lot of wastage through corruption, through mismanagement, and through just ineptitude. So the first thing that we have to do as a county government is to ensure that our funds are more efficiently utilized. And they'll be more efficiently utilized by, number one, looking at the income side, ensuring that income, whatever is income, really comes into the county's coffers. And two, ensuring that whatever the county spends on is really what the county should have spent on, and that there isn't any inflated pricing. Secondly, also deployment of funds. There are many times when you find that development funds are allocated for functions which are not priority, and that there would be other considerations other than the social welfare of the people of the town. As I mentioned earlier, Joe, I talked about the PPP approach. PPP approach will be useful in terms of those projects and those initiatives that are commercial in nature and that will have a profit that can attract the private sector. So we'll use very largely the PPP approach in a lot of the investments that we expect that will create employment. However, for some of those projects that might not necessarily have that profit motive, we'll be looking to, apart from getting funds from our coffers, we'll be looking to get funds from donors. A lot of those donors out there are willing to fund projects which are well managed and which are credible. I think it's just a question of packaging it properly and getting funding from them. Lastly, and this is just about the theme, for Kisumu to grow and for Kisumu...
Christine, how much is your plant, the modern water treatment plant, going to cost, for example, and then you can start from there?
That's where it's very key that we are going to partner with the central government. Apart from the 6 billion, we are very positive that we will get money from the central government to help us fund our activities because of the collaboration that we are going to have together. We are also very positive that we will get outside partners to help us work with these organizations. And we are also very positive that the aspect of ICT in tourism will be able, once we are able to work on tourism, to focus on ICT, which is already ongoing, will be cascaded from the national level to the county level, to the sub-county level, and to the ward level. We are able to create enough finances. And even in the market sector, once we close those loopholes and we are able to get the right amount, because if you're taxing somebody, they should see the result of why they're being taxed. So we will do that. We just manage to make sure that each and every market is able to have a decent toilet. Then they'll be willing, and you can clean it. They'll be willing to give you the money because they have the money, but they're not willing to give it freely because it's not being used properly and they're not being given services. So in that aspect, we can be able to partner with our central government, partner with the international community, and partner with the Kisumu resident people. The moment they are able to see that the services are being given to them, they'll be able to give. And from that aspect, as we can also be able to say, in the tourism sector, once we improve it and show all the very good sites for Kisumu County, then we can have these sustainable development goals clearly working for us. Because one aspect which we can sustain very easily, make sure each and every youth can just have one beehive. Each and every youth, just one beehive. From there, we can be able to export honey. Clean, organic honey will create money for us. So the moment we have all these youths who are able to have at least one, we'll improve on our forest sector. We have the right pollination going on for our crops, and the money will be able to, we can get that money which we need.
Thank you. Professor, you promised to build some pilot light rail in I think the sugar belt, airports, sports complexes, and all these things. Surely that will not cost even the entire 6 billion, even if you increase your revenue collection to 2 billion, for example.
You don't need to do them all in 1 year. You have to plan over time to do them. And Joe, you said something very important, that we get about 6.5 billion from the Divisional Revenue Act. And then on top of that, we get something with the equalization fund, conditional grant, and so on. If you add these other grants and funds, maybe we get about 10 billion a year. Now, of the 6.5 billion from the Divisional Revenue Act, 70% goes to wages. So only 30% should go to development. That's what we have. The other, like conditional grants and equalization fund, quite a good part should be used for development. Now, if you improve revenue collection from the current 800 million to 2.5 billion, then you have some money there to invest in development. Then we should sit down and translate this manifesto into an implementation program depending on the money we have for development. So there's another step we're going to do when we're in government, as soon as we get in government, establish an implementation program for implementing our manifesto based on the money that we shall then see that we have in government. Now, another way by which we shall get money is to do a forensic audit of the assets and liabilities in the county and a forensic audit of all these tenders. Let me tell you something. We are going to go to the Asset Recovery Agency in Nairobi, and any civil servant in the county government or governor who has taken money from the county, their assets will be seized, will be sold, and we shall use that for development.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the last segment of this debate, and we will start with the question. As I mentioned, that there are a number of pre-selected questioners. The first one is Joyce Opondo from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. One question, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joagev. Thank you very much, candidates. My question is, what incentives, I know you've been talking about it sporadically during the evening, but I would like to know what incentives are you going to be putting in place to promote investment across the county? And what are the possible measures that you will put in place to ensure intercounty trade is thriving by eliminating double taxation? Right now there's a lot of double taxation going on, and that is quite a disincentive for us as manufacturers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Omolo.
Thank you, Joe. I think in my manifesto, I have sworn to work closely with all the people in Kisumu. So the association of manufacturers, because some of these things you cannot solve this problem on a platform like this. But we need to understand where the outgoing government came from. Because if the taxes were high, I think the best way of increasing productivity is to give those who produce affordable tax. You don't tax them such that you even give them, it makes them not have the incentive to invest more. So one thing that I will have to do is to sit down with the manufacturers, even the businessmen and women, so that we discuss how whatever tax that we collect, because I would like to really go down the line of the public participation. I think almost every county government did not do it well, so that when you tax people, they pay taxes that they themselves have participated in passing, that tax is affordable.
David, same question, please.
Now, on the question of incentives to businesses, one obvious one obviously is land, especially for those who are doing manufacturing. So the county government will partner with such entities to provide land, which then encourages the investors to come on board. Another would obviously be extension services, especially for those who will be doing agribusiness. The government will be able to provide some form of extension services and support to the farmers that will then facilitate manufacturing. The third one obviously is capital. There could be opportunities for capital injection in terms of equity into such organizations that will then promote them coming on board. The obvious one obviously is political support to ensure that as a business then you feel safe to do business here. Another one obviously is working in consultation with the national government to provide special economic zones within the county to facilitate those who want to invest here, especially for export. And those then would benefit from a taxation point of view. Obviously, as a county government, there could also be opportunities to provide tax incentives to such entities. In terms of promoting inter-county trade, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lake transport that we have here, which will be obviously cheaper than road transport. So it's just a question of reviving lake transport and ensuring that there is infrastructure to support transportation via the lake. Another but that's probably in relation with the political support, is just that as a county government, we will ensure that we work with the neighboring counties for purposes of trade. And I'm normally a believer of what you call comparative advantage. You can't produce everything in one county.
Christine?
In my opening statement, I'd said that we really need to rebrand Kisumu and look for a way out on how the business community can feel at home and feel secure by making sure that our community does not have this victim attitude. We must change how we think, so that we do not say that if so-and-so is having money, it's because of them that I am poor. So that way we are able to focus on ourselves and say, we go get it, make sure the business community is safe so that they can produce more and employ more and enable our people by giving a kind of sponsoring forum with the business community, that they are able to incubate and induct our young people into the business sector and work together with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, even working together with the political parties, so that the process of electing leaders is conducive to business, because this process starts all the way through from the election process. And secondly, on the issue of intercounty business, we will sit together with all the like-minded governors and form like a lake basin development block, which already is existing, so that we can be able to harmonize the kind of taxation process through all the other counties and make sure that our business people are able to have a conducive environment through which they can be able to work together with the community. Secondly, also put it across to the business communities for the social aspect, to be able to give more to the community so that the people can be able to feel their presence and the good aspect of what they are doing. And thirdly, to collaborate with the central government so that we can be able to have the business community working together with the central government, ensuring the export processing zone is working together with them, and ensuring that we are able to do more exports and in turn create more revenue for our community. And if that is done, then we also talk about the lakefront and talk to the people who are owning land around the lakefront, open it up for the business community, the major hotels, to be able to get land so that we can get more employment, because if we have hotels there, we can get more employment and be able to focus properly.
Professor Nyong'o.
Well, Joe, the first thing you do is have good governance, and a government that works. That's an incentive. And a governor who knows what he's doing. That's an incentive. The other incentive is just implement the law. The County Government Act already provides for a consultative forum in which we can consult together and know the suggestions of the business community on the incentives they want, the kind of taxes they want to be dealt with. Because we must give us ideas. But I want to go further than that. I want to do what I did when I was Minister for Economic Planning and National Development, when we established the Economic and Social Council for the whole of Kenya. I'd like to establish here a Kisumu County Economic and Social Council, which is something a little bit more than the consultative forum. This council will involve people not just from Kisumu County, but from outside. Like we need people who are good businessmen, men and women, people with knowledge of finance and insurance and so on. They may not be here, but an economic and social council for the county will bring them in. In the economic and social council that we had for Kenya, we had people from Malaysia, from the US and so on. And to really help is a thing that helped us develop Vision 2030. And I think Vision 2040 for Kisumu will definitely be developed by this Kisumu County Economic and Social Council, in which we invite you to participate as a business community. Together, our ideas will be richer. We have ideas of incentive, of course. The first one is good governance and a governor who knows what he's doing. Secondly, to improve the environment in our country for doing business, just by infrastructure and a clean environment. And thirdly, by making sure that our revenue are properly collected and managed. At the moment, it's looted. Therefore, we have no money to improve our own business environment. There must be some political and economic hygiene in this country. At the moment, it is polluted.
Next question from Georgina Adhiambo, who is from the Voices of Women in Western Kenya.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, my leaders. My question is, how will you ensure equity on distribution of World Development Fund, having in mind the county's poverty index, to avoid misuse of funds and to avoid delayed or priorities that don't really matter to that ward? Thank you.
Mr. Molo,
yeah, thank
equity.
You. I think the current constitution puts a lot of emphasis on equity, and I think the most important thing for me is to ensure that there is a sufficient participation of the women folk in all the activities that take place in the county, because in real life it is difficult for other people to speak on your behalf if you are absent. So I think the most important thing is to bring women within the orbit of development so that they say what they want. And equity will be done if they participate equally. I know from where we are coming, we used to relegate women to the back room. But I think this new Katiba insists on equity, on the issues of gender, and once the women are there where things are being divided, then there will be equity in whatever you are desiring to see in this country. Thank you.
David? Yeah, regarding the issue of equity in resource allocation of funds, I must mention that the principle of social equity must prevail here. And by that, what I mean is that those who have the least must get more than those who have a lot. So that then you have a scenario where you're equalizing the resource allocation issue. And as I mentioned earlier, and I think this is a very important point, that resource allocation is a source of conflict and is a source of communities feeling that others have been favored while others are not. Another important aspect on equity in resource allocation is really that bottom-up approach. That bottom-up approach, which normally is embedded if you have proper governance structures. Proper governance structures that will enable you to get a first-hand feel of what's really happening on the ground. Lastly, there's the issue of affirmative action, which is related to social equity. That certain people in society are more disadvantaged than others. Like women tend to be disadvantaged in many ways. The elderly tend to be disadvantaged in many ways. And of course, the disabled as well. So the way we'll want to do it is that those who are disadvantaged will get more than those who have a lot more advantaged.
Christine, you're next.
We must let our people know that they must first take responsibility for good governance to take place. Social audit must come up in a very clear way. We must inform our women and the youth that it is okay to question how you're being governed. You must take social audit of every project, and the project must come from what you decide first by public participation. So the moment that is done, then we are able to have this thing focused clearly on the community getting to have development agenda of what they have decided. That cannot happen without our community taking responsibility and the youth taking responsibility and the women taking the responsibility and knowing it is okay to be on that decision-making table. It is okay to question issues. It is okay to make sure that what is rightfully yours is implemented. So how do we do that? We do that through using the women groups, maendeleo ya wanawake, social centers, making sure that in the barazas, the women participate and make a decision for what is going to help their children and their net worth for the whole community. How do we do that? We make sure that in all those social aspects, they are able to have a social audit system. And even after the project has been done, they can still interrogate it and say, yes, this is the amount. They should know how much each project is costing and do just a general audit so that they can even question after that we don't like the way this is done. And if that is done, the leaders will follow, will take cue and will do the right thing. So people must take responsibility and put accountable the leaders to what they are doing.
All right, Professor.
Joe, you must remember that on the 9th of August, NASA will be in power. And we have proposed through our Okoa Kenya bill, which Jubilee killed, that we shall give 45% of the national revenue of the previous financial year to the counties. That increases the basket of getting money to the wards. We have also proposed in Okoa Kenya that we will give to the Ward Development Fund progressively from 5% to 15% of the county's budget. I say progressively because to begin with, there may be all kinds of things that the county has to do. But we aim at spending about 5 to 15% of the county's budget to the Ward Development Fund. Now, you're talking about equity, about distribution of the Ward Development Fund. That's why we fix it in percentage. But what's much more important is that the structure of participation of the use of that money must be based on a structure of government at the ward level. The ward is a representative institution. The ward is not really an administrative institution. The administrative institution at the village level is the village council. So many villages make the ward. Then they come together when we are doing integrated county development program, and they will put in their ideas in that plan. That is what the county will finance in terms of development. How the 5 to 15% of that money is used is dependent on the integrated county development plan developed from the village councils upwards. Finally, Joe, there is also what is called flagship projects the county government must decide. Are there certain projects which, apart from what are requested by the Wananchi, will help develop the county? We have proposed about 10 flagship projects in our manifesto, and that will really boost development in our county, and they will be distributed equitably.
Thank you, Professor. Next question, Kalpana Karia from the Hindu Council of Kenya.
Thank you very much. My name is Kalpana Karia. I'm the not only the chairperson for Hindu Council, but also I was the director for Little Gokul Education Center for street children and orphans. Now, from which we had brought up many street children and orphans to be lawyers, doctors, and some of them teachers, businessmen. So my question here is that what is your plan for the street children and street children, not even orphans, they're not all orphans, because even the security of Kisumu depends a lot on the street children. The violence, whichever is caused, is ignited by the street children. They are supporting it. So how can the candidate make Kisumu a free street children zone, and what can you do for all those? There are thousands out there. Okay. We're also supporting Mama Nagina Children's Home, and for which we can only do a handful. But
thank you very much, ma'am. Your question is asked. What will you do to deal with the question of street children in Kisumu? Mr. Omolo.
Yes, this is a real problem, but like all problems, you must know the cost, the basic cost of this. I think one reason why we have got street children problem in Kisumu and elsewhere, not just in Kisumu, is poverty. So if we manage our projects well, and our projects reach the villages and the urban, and the slum centers, quarters in urban centers, then we shall considerably reduce street children. I think the other thing is the family values. The moment we have many families separating, and that tends to be the case these days, this problem is there. So I think my government will also look into family values to try to engage with the parents, and when I mean parents, whether married or not married, so that we inculcate family values in our people to prevent these street children from going to the streets. Because every child has got a parent. There's no child that's not from heaven. Lastly, I think we will talk to other benevolent people to also establish centers where some of them can be trained skills that they can sell to the market. Thank you.
David?
My opinion is that the reason why we have too many street children is really manifestation of a collapsed family unit. That delinquency has to be addressed at that family level. Most of the time, the reason why we have many street children, as Honorable Molo has said, is poverty. Poverty is what creates a lot of the street children. It's the main reason why we have an influx of street children. Now, one of the things that I will do on an immediate basis is really to set up a rehabilitation center, or rather rehabilitation centers across the county, as many as can possibly be done, but subject to resources. So rehabilitation centers to make sure that these street children are reorientated to be normal citizens of society and taken to formal schooling. But otherwise, the long-term solution for this has to be a socio-economic one, which has to do with incomes, has to do with things like employment.
Christine?
I had said earlier that one of the easiest way we are going to use to collect garbage is to use the labor force in the street children and let them make money. That aspect will be giving them direct employment, but we also have to look at the social aspect of their education level and be able to see how many can we rehabilitate.
Employment for those young boys?
That's what I'm saying. That's the immediate one, but we have to look at ways how they can be able to go to school and make a difference in their lives. How do we do that? We encourage them in the system which we have right now. We even have one of our members going for the elected position who was actually in the street and has managed to work their ways to the top, gone to school, and through that system you're able to know there's so much we can do. I was in contact with the street families just behind the Nakumat, And they are very focused on what they want. They say they want farming materials, they say they want machines for washing their vehicles, and they are focused. The moment we are in the position to be able to help them to do that, we'll make sure that they have what they need to make a difference in their lives. Secondly, curtail the agenda that makes them leave their homes. It's not that all the street children are coming from poor homes. Some of them come from very responsible homes. So what we need is a social fiber that breaks down and lets these children go to the streets. If we have the correct mechanism of farming in the local areas, we have the airport working correctly for the people to export their wares, we have the value addition to be able to employ enough people, we can reduce significantly the street children in our midst. So we also have to focus on their education, because some of them are there because they have not been socialized properly. So we do that to improve on that.
Professor, the problem of street children in Kisumu.
Yeah, let's assume that we shall always have street children. Why do I say so? Because the US is a very developed society, and yet there's street children in New York and Chicago and in Los Angeles. India is not so well, it's not as highly developed as the US. And Mumbai is full of street children. So does Dhaka in Bangladesh. So it is true, yes, that maybe the poorer you are, the more street children you have, yes, you have to deal with that. But even developed society have street children. What is the solution? Yes, please develop so that you have fewer of them, but know that you are going to have some in the end anyway. So what you have to do is support people like Carrier. They are doing philanthropic work to deal with street children. Don't penalize them. I think the other day my wife and her colleagues went to some school here. People were trying to look after the disabled. And the county government of Kisumu could not give them water at a rate they could afford. When they sank a borehole, the county government went and said, you have to pay 45,000 shillings for using our sewage. And yet they're doing philanthropic work. Give incentives to these people to have more of these street children so that they take care of them. That's why missionaries came into this country, to help people who cannot help themselves. And so in a society like ours, where we shall continue to have street children, support philanthropic work by giving philanthropists incentives to deal with problems they are best suited to do. That doesn't mean that we don't have rehabilitation homes. Yes, we should. But I think neglecting philanthropists is very disastrous.
All right. The final question in this segment, Ronald Odero.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Here working with the research institution in this city of Kisumu. And my question, I think I've lived in this country for about 30 years now. And all these things that we are hearing here, I think we've heard it quite enough. And we know that some of you are capable, some of you are not capable. But then to Prof, whom I know that you are a serious contender in this position, I'm not biased, I'm just saying what is on the ground. What
your
I'm
question,
trying to ask,
please. Your question.
What is your position with what is called research? Most of these policies you people are trying to plan for us here. Are you informed by any indicators or evaluation on the ground, so that when you tell us you want to give us a road, are we interested in that road really? Or are we interested in the other things that you've not even got our opinion? So what is your belief on what is called research in running a county government?
Thank you. Mr. Molo, what research are you relying on to give us that elaborate manifesto?
I would like to regard his comment as a comment, not a question. But all the same, I'll also comment on his comment. I think if you are a serious Kenyan, like I hope you are, we don't lack data in this country. We lack the brains to apply themselves seriously to those data. So really, we don't lack information. It is there in plenty. In fact, when we became multi-party, a World Bank official did comment in my presence that one special thing about Kenya is that Kenyans steal, and they even record that they're stealing. That's why when Professor said that we are going to look for these people, it is possible. I can tell you, I know so much about Goldenberg. The records are there, but the will to do it is what is lacking. So if that is your worry, the information is there, it's available for you. If you want it, it's there. Now the issue is, can you act on it? That will be the real problem. I mean, the real question. I think what we mean to say here, or what I mean to say here is this. So long as you elect the government you want, it will be done. Thank you.
David.
Yes. The fact of the matter is that my manifesto is based on the issues that affect the county. And as has been stated here, the issues that affect the county are well documented in data. For instance, issues such as unemployment, it's common knowledge, it's about 40%. It's all there. And that unemployment is one of the biggest socioeconomic problems that this county faces, and by extension, the whole country faces. And just to also address one of the issues that you raised regarding whether what we propose to do will be based on what's on the ground. I would answer that by saying that one of the first things that, as a governor I'll do is to ensure that the governance structures that are in place are appropriate for our purposes. Appropriate to the extent that we should be able to get feedback, reliable feedback from the people on the ground on what's exactly happening and what their needs are.
Christine?
See, part of the reasons why we must take charge and be responsible for what we want is that you, the citizen, must take responsibility of what you want. It is not the governor who decides which road or which hospital. It is public participation through the right channel, and you make a decision. This is what we want. So the governor has no right to give you what you don't need. And the next thing you need to do is, you as a citizen of Kisumu County, what have you done? What have you taken into consideration to make sure that you're being governed properly? I said I wanted a road, you've given me a hospital. Ask the question. Do social audit. Take responsibility.
And finally, Professor Nyong'o.
I think I'll differ with my friend, P.C. Omolo. I think research must be an ongoing process. We don't know everything. We continue to know on a daily basis. And that's why we propose in our manifesto that we shall work very closely with the universities in Kisumu County for purposes of research. Because research leads to discovery and innovation. And we can't discover and innovate without research. Take, for example, the sugar belt. One of the things that I've observed in the sugar production is that the factories are actually, and the production is suffering because of very low quality research of the kind of seedlings that we need, how many months they should take before they are mature. That's something that must continue and must improve on it. Remember, originally we believed that cane matures at 18 months. Now, through research, we can harvest cane at 7 months. That is through research. So we must continue doing research to make productivity go up and other things. So I think research must be taken very seriously.
All right, Professor Nyong'o. Ladies and gentlemen, we have already done 120 minutes of this debate. And obviously, you cannot discuss everything about a county with more than 1 million people, 7 constituencies, and Kenya's 3rd largest city in 2 hours. So we will have to end it there. But before we do that, I'll give each one of you candidates 1 minute to make your final pitch to the people of Kisumu with 25 days to go before the general election.
I want
Mr.
to appeal
Omolo.
Thank you. I want to appeal to the voters of Kisumu to vote me as their governor, because I'm competent, I'm mature, experienced, and honest.
Thank you. David.
I'm addressing the people of Kisumu County, particularly the women and the youth, because they are the most disenfranchised. I'm asking you, do you want change, or do you want to remain in the old order? The time for change is now. And I believe that I represent that change that will create employment to the people of Kisumu County as the biggest social menace that we have. I promise you, people of Kisumu County, that I will be the change that you need. Vote for me on the 8th of August for governor for Kisumu County.
Christine?
Thank you. Like our famous son Obama said, you cannot be in the football field and put one side of the team without them being able to play the football. I'm humbly requesting the people of Kisumu County, the time has come for you to elect a woman governor, and I'm humbly asking you to please elect me as the governor of Kisumu County for productivity, for accountability, and for honesty. God bless you. Thank you.
Professor Nyong'o.
I want to ask the people of Kisumu County, you have an appointment with destiny on the 8th of August. You either elect NASA or continue with Jubilee. If you continue with Jubilee, you will continue with the disaster, corruption, non-inclusion, and a lot of unfairness. In Kisumu County, you either elect Ranguma or Nyong'o. If you elect Ranguma, it's like electing Jubilee. Disaster, lack of inclusion, and total waste of public resources which should be used for developing this county. So, vote wisely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the Kisumu edition of our gubernatorial debate series. Thank you very much, candidates, and all the best on August 8th. Thank you very much, Kisumu.